There can be only one podcast, and may it be the Princes of the Universe. Hi, folks. I'm Matt.
And I'm Wes.
And I'm Heath.
Oh, hey, Heath. Welcome back.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
We were just talking about this, but you've never been in the new house. That's sorry for that.
Affirmative. Until about 30 minutes ago, I thought you were in your old one. That's how long it's been since I've been on here.
Wow. Well, yeah.
He's been sleeping.
Welcome. He's been sleeping. The gentle giant. Sleeping there. So good to have you. Welcome. And welcome to this one. This is one that we teased a while back called Before the Boom. We're finally here. The reason Mikey couldn't do it, Mikey had some medical emergency. He's fine. He's not going to die on us yet. But
he's not working an angle, is he?
You know what? I don't know. He may be, and then coming back for the pay-per-view. But right now, we got Heath. Heath knows wrestling.
Yes,
a little bit.
A little bit. And
so what do you guys got here? We're going to start. First off, set up. What are we talking about here?
So the idea of this podcast was to cover the years leading up to the real boom of the modern day professional. Would you consider this to be the modern day since we're covering the 80s, or is this the golden days?
How about the Bronze Age?
The Bronze Age. So we're going to bring it back to like the comics.
It was a good age for comic books.
was to cover the years that led up to when WWF went global and basically exposed the business for more of an entertainment style type of business structure rather than the carny type sideshow wrestling.
To which, when you told me about it, I said, that's a good idea, but you can't have me talk about it because I don't know much, if anything, on that.
Right. So we were going to leverage Mikey because Mikey showed great enthusiasm, but unfortunately,
couldn't make it.
He could not make it. So we got the mother of professional wrestling.
We did. Do you know we talk about you from time to time on the podcast?
I'm going to have to start listening.
Lovingly.
More. Well, I appreciate that.
All lovingly. But we also know that you're sleeping, so we can say whatever we want. So
yeah, I'm old.
He does,
but you are in our memories. Every couple of podcasts we do, your name does drop.
Thank you. So
as much as Ralph's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So where Wes is into the modern age stuff from like the Attitude Era, and probably the 5 or 6 years of that, I'm more of a territory person. I'm old school when it comes to wrestling, so that's why when he said that was going to do one on that one, that's kind of my forte.
That's up your alley.
That's up.
You have
my
a lot
alley.
to say about this.
I think so.
Good. No, I'm very interested. I'm very interested, and a lot of our listeners were very interested about the idea of the topic.
So what we thought was, if you look at things like in a growing process of like school, it's 4 years to complete that. Mm-hmm. High school, college, whatever. So what we're going to look at is 80, 81, 82, and 83, which are the 4 years that led up to January of 84 when Hogan beat Sheik for the belt, and basically the business really took off. Yeah.
It changed forever, as they say in a documentary.
Yeah. National way.
In a national way, yeah. It went
Vince
national.
Took the business national.
Yeah. Okay,
so we're going to start with 80. Like I said, we're going to try to cover like some major events of that. We're not going to be able to cover everything. We're not covering anything from Japan. This is going to be strictly United States-based pro wrestling. No. And we don't have all of our dates down because we did not nail that, but these are all big events that happened in 1980. So I'm going to throw those out. He's going to add a little color. Matt may have a question, or he may just say next.
Go for it.
All right. Jerry Lawler breaks his leg.
So, if any of you are Jerry Lawler fans out there, at the time, I believe he was a heel. He had Jimmy Hart in his corner, and he loved to play flag football.
And he loved teenage girls.
Among other things. So,
Which one of those was the reason he broke his leg?
Both.
Okay.
The truth, it was a football game. So, when you're the bread and butter of the Memphis territory and you break your leg and you're out for a year.
That's money. That's ticket sales out the door.
Absolutely. So, big to do. That was probably one of the biggest things on the Memphis side. That also led to the beginning of the the Hart family against Jerry Lawler for the next 4 years. That set up a lot of things to come, and one thing we're going to talk about in a couple of years.
So was wrestling better because of that?
Well,
break?
Jerry Jarrett was a promoter in Memphis, so therefore he had to bring some other guys in to get over, they say. So I wouldn't say it was necessarily better. It did get him through. Obviously, he didn't go out of business. But once Lawler came back the next year, obviously things skyrocketed from there.
The big thing I think is Lawler is the heel. He breaks his leg. They continue making it through, but when he comes back, he's a good guy, baby face, and that.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an interesting way for a guy going down hurt, which has happened in pro wrestling before. Triple H comes to mind. When you're hurt, then you come back and you're over because people have missed you so much.
Yeah, people miss you so much. Makes sense.
And I think one of the main things that started the whole Lawler face turn was obviously once he broke his leg, Jimmy Hart gets on TV and says, when your prize stallion goes down and breaks their leg, what do? You shoot him, and you get a new one. Which did not go over well with Lawler, obviously. He thought it was...
He thought it was below the belt.
He thought it was below the belt, so a year later when he comes back, he legitimately broke Jimmy Hart's jaw.
Wow.
True story.
Wow, okay.
With a solid
now it's
punch.
on.
Yes. Yeah. So that, for the Memphis territory, that was huge.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, no, that's
Lawler was
good.
able to maintain being a baby face for the next 40 years.
Good. And one of the biggest markets, too.
Yep. Definitely a big market for pro wrestling.
Yeah.
I do want to preface one thing that we're starting on these 4 years. A lot of people think that Vince McMahon created the money boom of wrestling. It's not true. Territories were making hundreds of thousands of dollars before Vince McMahon, so he wasn't necessarily the godfather of the big money. That's a whole other story that would take a long time to talk about that I could go into, but we're not today. But just wanted to preface that there was big money out there.
Okay. All right. Yeah. There's big money in a lot of these markets, but they had loyal fans.
Yeah,
loyal fans out there.
Weekly
Yeah.
fans.
Yeah. Like that was can't miss, an event every week, right?
Right. The Southern Territories ran usually 7 days a week, the same markets week after week after week. So they constantly had to create new angles and keep everything fresh. Whereas up in the Northern Territory, the WWF at the time, they would run, their big cities once a month.
Yeah, so
and then
stories didn't have to be thought that much in advance because you had only a month in between shows.
No, which most people that saw that from the South would think that was boring wrestling. But up north, that was all they knew.
That was the normal way of doing things.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So the next biggest thing that we felt was the turn in Georgia Championship Wrestling when Dusty had leveraged Ole to be his tag team partner in the Omni against the Assassins.
Right, so this was a year-long program that started in 79 and culminated in 1980. So Ole being Ole Anderson, who was the booker of the Georgia Territory and also one of the main heels. Him and Dusty had a rivalry going back forever. They hated each other, and then Ole turns face. Why? I can't remember all the logistics of it, but an entire year goes through where he is trying to get Dusty to team with him against Ivan Koloff and some others. Dusty would never do it because he said, I can't trust you. Never, it's never over. Never going to trust you.
Once a heel, always a heel.
Right.
Angle.
So Ole went through all the top faces and got them to change sides. He got Tommy Rich. He got Tony Atlas. He got Wrestling 2. Probably Stan Hansen was in that mix as well. And then finally, after almost a year, he convinces Dusty to tag with him against the Assassin and Ivan Koloff. It culminated in a cage match at the Omni. Gene Anderson, who was Ole's fictitious brother, special referee. So you think the big blow off is, Ole and Dusty's finally gonna, beat them.
Yeah.
They get in there, they have the cage match, and Ole's getting beat up. Dusty's waiting for the hot tag. He's waiting, it's building. Crowd's going crazy. Finally, he gets the hot tag to Dusty. They go back and forth, and Dusty goes down for a little bit. Here comes about, going for the hot tag again. Ole comes. He finally gets to Ole. Ole tags in. Place erupts. He turns around and he starts beating up on Dusty. So then what happens then? The assassin joins in. Ivan Koloff joins in. The referee Gene Anderson joins in. So you got a 4-on-1 against Dusty. The place is going insane. You got actual fans trying to climb the cage to get in.
That's why they had a cage match to begin with. They knew they're going to bring the house down.
It was right proportions. So that was huge. Jim Cornette has talked about that plenty of times on his podcast. He was there. He witnessed it and said it was one of the hottest things he has ever seen in wrestling before.
Wow.
Just the sheer ferocity of the crowd. Like, they were really like uncontrollable, and it took like forever for them to get out of their stuff. So that's a big one for me.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's a big. It's always good when you get the crowd into it, and when you get the heat turned up. That's just that's a talent.
If you get the fans totally vested in something, then you've made your money.
Let me ask you this, and to be fair, wrestling does have these year-long stories that build up to WrestleMania a lot of the times, but they seem a little slow. There's a lot of, because we got to stretch out this story to let it go to WrestleMania. I almost think
now it's faster.
Oh, you think it's faster
back then, because they're working on episodic TV so much, so they can take something that probably needs 3 months in the oven and they'll get it out in a month.
Well, I mean that way, but if someone tried to stretch out a long story, how was this? Did you ever get bored of if Dusty was going to join forces with him, or was that just always an interesting story you were interested in every week to see what the ongoing development was with Ollie?
That was the hook. That was what kept people coming back.
Was the question, is he trustworthy?
Right. The territory days, you had to string out your angles.
Yeah, because there was no TV.
Right. So you kept building and building and building. What does that mean? Every week, more money. More money. The fans are going to come back. They're going to keep going. Now, you can run a program too long, because nowadays we have short attention span. But back then, people were along for the ride.
Yeah. But classic soap opera, except it was the only game in town back then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, TV was different. TV sold house shows back then as opposed to it is now.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Yeah.
Your money was made on things that they were not going to show you on TV.
Okay. Yep. Interesting. Good stuff. Keep going.
So the next thing is, this will probably bring a tear to Heath's face. He's very lovingly referred to this group of wrestlers as his brothers. It's very I wouldn't say erotic, but loving. So there's nothing wrong with it. The
Thanks.
fabulous
I know who's going to do your eulogy,
Freebirds
by the way.
Yes.
blind the junkyard dog and sets up a huge angle that made more money in Mid-South, held records until the Rock and Roll and Midnight.
Yep. So the Freebirds come into Mid-South. Junkyard Dog is the new thing, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And him and Buck Robley are the Mid-South champions, fighting the Freebirds. And it was, unfortunately, the Freebirds win. At the time, I was not a Freebird fan because I was a little kid then, so I always liked all the good guys.
Yeah, you always do.
Later in life, I love the Freebirds. Yes, they are my brothers and family. So, anyway. So, during the match, Michael Hayes has this hair cream, and they're going to put it into Buck Robley's face, and Junkyard Dog intervenes, and Michael Hayes hits him with the cream in the eye.
Inadvertently.
Oh.
Wink, wink. But, yeah, so then that ended up blinding the dog in one eye, which was a huge angle because true story. The people believed things back then.
Yeah.
So much that they actually were sending Junkyard Dog money every week. The fans.
Oh, wow. To have him get better.
Yes.
Wow. Before GoFundMe's.
Yes. He was actually getting money from the fans. He had to stay out of sight to make the angle work for like 6 weeks before they even did anything. So he got paid to sit at home and do nothing.
And he just had a baby, and he got on and did an interview talking about how he couldn't see his daughter.
Which got him even more sympathy. Oh, yeah. He got
wow. You talk about goosing something there, man, for all it's worth.
Yeah, so when injury angles happened back in the day, they would legitimately go to the hospital. They would legitimately
check themselves in.
Yes.
Yeah, I do remember reading some about this.
Yeah, so he had to stay out 6 weeks for that, and then he came back, but he was blind still, but he wanted a match with Michael Hayes. It became a blindfold dog collar match in a cage against Michael Hayes, which was at the Superdome, and for Mid-South, it still holds the record for the largest attendance at the Superdome ever.
Wow.
In 1980.
Big.
So it was also the blow-off of the feud. Obviously, Junkyard Dog wins. Everybody goes home happy, and we go on to the next.
Nice.
Yep, so the next thing that we're going to close out 1980 with is the showdown at Shea. Two major matches from that are what we're going to kind of cover. It's the Bruno versus Zbyszko blow-off, which was kind of the culmination of another year-long student turning on his teacher storyline. And then the big match of this undercard, which was also on the undercard of the Superdome with the dog against Michael Hayes, was Andre and Hogan.
Yep. So in this scenario, as in WrestleMania 3, you had Hogan the good guy, Andre the bad guy. The first time they ever clashed, Hogan was the bad guy, and Andre, of course, was the major babyface, the big draw. So Hogan was still pretty green at this time, so obviously working a program with Andre was going to be a boon for his success. The Larry Zbyszko and Bruno Sammartino. So growing up, Larry Zbyszko worshiped Bruno. Real life. True story. Bruno helped him get in the business at a later time, and they did the angle where Zbyszko wanted to wrestle him on TV just as a teacher versus student type thing and show him how, better he got and all that. Bruno wouldn't do it. No, I don't want to do it, being the babyface, being sly about it and stuff. And then Zbyszko finally talked him into it. And obviously Bruno was getting the best of him during the match. And for for whatever reasons, Zbyszko turns on him, hits him with a chair, cuts him open. He's bleeding everywhere on live TV.
Bust him open.
Got it. And, of course, Bruno, the living legend in the WWF, you don't do that to the living legend. No. And there you go. It started a whole new thing. Now, Shea Stadium, the showdown at Shea, was kind of the big blow-off for that. That was the biggest crowd that the WWF had ever had at the time. So it was held outside at Shea Stadium in New York. As Wes said, the undercard had Hogan and Andre on it. So that's setting up, many years down the line of them working together.
And then the last thing was, and this is not a match, but it's just an interesting note that leads up to what we're going to head into is December 29th, USA airs the MSG card for the very first time. So WWF is on USA for the first time in 1980.
So that's really setting a precedence of where we're going to be at in the next few years.
Oh, okay. All right. That's 1980.
That is 1980 in a
nutshell.
Heath-size nutshell.
Heath-size nutshell. Okay. Let's go to 81.
All right. So in 81, the first thing we're going to go into is another major thing involving Andre. It was Killer Khan breaks Andre's ankle which was voted the 1981 feud of the year. Part of the big deal of that was also Andre got on national TV with this and really kind of made the rounds because he was legitimately hurt. So they really milked this and tried to make Killer Khan a major villain that
Heel
they
at
could
this
make
point,
money
yeah.
with at that point.
That's smart. Yeah, you always
Yeah.
try to do stuff like that. I like the symmetry here. You started with the leg break in 80, and now we're going with the ankle break in 81. That's good thinking there. All right, go for it.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that other than reading about that in some of the old wrestling mags when I was little, but I do remember actually seeing that on the CBS News one morning. If anybody remembers, and this is going to be way back, Warner Wolf used to have this highlight sports reel type thing. Look up Warner Wolf if you want to, but he was very important back in the day. He showed the actual angle on CBS News, so it was that's
Big. That's how big it got.
yeah. So that's where
Wow.
I heard of it from. So
Wow.
there you go.
Nice. All right, next one.
Well, I was just going to add a little bit.
Oh, I'm
to
sorry,
that.
go ahead.
No, it's not much. I just think that a lot of what we're going to kind of cover is how much Andre did, which led up to why it was such a big deal. What Andre was doing in the early '80s, late '70s into the early '80s is why WrestleMania 3 mattered so much, because it really was the passing of the professional wrestling global torch, for lack of a better term. That's why it's just it's a major thing. I don't know if Killer Khan ever drew the kind of money out of that and got the kind of sympathy, heat. What do you think, Heath?
He was pretty hated through that. Andre, as beloved as he was, Andre was not only world renowned, he went through all the territories as a special attraction. So everybody really knew who Andre the Giant was. So big deal for the WWF at the time. So it's a milestone.
Another fun note about Andre is Heath's nickname is Andre the Giant because Andre was fun to be known that if Andre wanted to have a good match with you, he would, and if he did not, he would not, much like Heath's personality. If Heath is happy, he'll dance all night, stay a little longer. If he's sad, he's going to pet his cat and go to sleep at 8.
I have nothing to add after that.
Okay, there you go. I like how this is a non-biased overview too. So keep going. What's the next one then?
Well, we're just trying to give you a little peek behind the curtain.
Thank you.
All right, so the next thing, and this is the biggest deal to me, and this has been a new appreciation for me over the past few years, the importance of this, partially because of my love of Terry Funk, is the empty arena match in April against Jerry Lawler.
Now, you have spoken a little bit about this before because I remember you talking about this.
Right, yeah, I
as
think
some
it's
of the best.
major...
You talked about this as one of the best matches you've ever
Yes.
seen.
Yeah, it was just the production
Yeah,
of
that's where he
it,
talked about
and,
it, yeah.
And a lot of that goes to Lance Russell, who I'm a huge fan of as well, the authenticity of that. So to me, this led into part of why probably the most popular I Quit match would be Tully against Magnum at the second Starrcade. Would you agree with that, Heath?
Third Starrcade.
Third Starrcade. Thank
Yeah,
you.
get it
Starrcade
right.
85.
Amateur.
Yes. I'm kind of taken aback after the good Heath, bad Heath thing, so let me regroup there.
No, you put it as one of your best matches.
Yeah, I'm just
I
saying,
remember
what I'm
this
saying
now.
is the eye angle
No.
is what...
No,
what
I remember
made
this.
Well,
that-
here's the symmetry again. So you were talking about the broke leg thing. Now we're talking about an eye thing again. We didn't we didn't even realize that all this was kind of coming apart.
It's like
that.
Operation.
Yeah. So the empty arena match. So it's out there for YouTube, kids. So just look up empty arena, Jerry Lawler, Terry Funk. It is classic. Lance Russell leading up to it in the arena by himself with the cameraman. It's some of the fun. It's just really funny if you get to watch it. He lights up a cigarette and he's just wondering where each of them is, and then here comes Funk, and Funk is out of control.
Cussing.
Cussing.
Sounds like somebody's angry daddy. just mad.
And Lance Russell's like trying to play the straight man to Terry's craziness, and it makes Wes laugh every time. He says, "For crying out loud."
Yeah.
I mean, you would have to see it. So anyway, Funk's just going, "Where's Lawler? Where's Lawler? I don't see him anywhere. Where's he, Lance? Where's he, Lance?" And he's like, "I don't know where he is, Terry. I don't know, for crying out loud."
He's so straight. And obviously Lawler shows up. They have the brawl. The biggest thing is it looks like he's blinded Funk, and which keeps the
With a piece
feud
of a chair.
going
Yeah.
throughout,
Happens.
the rest of the year. But I just thought that it was a different way of what became sports entertainment, but it felt so real still.
Yeah.
It did not feel contrived, or you were watching this going, "Oh, this is dumb." You kind of go, "Oh, wow, this."
I remember this. You said it was engaging the whole way through. It wasn't like luster. It didn't lag. Sometimes it wears down. They have to slow down. But you just felt like the tension was just there the whole
what
time.
What is it, 10 minutes maybe tops?
Ooh.
That's
I
that's
think
a long time for a match, though. You think about
Right,
like
but
that, to keep it going like that.
Start to finish through the whole thing, probably 20. It's 10 probably for the match itself, but there's just so much lead up to it that you're riveted one way or the other.
Okay.
That was April 6th of 81, by the way.
I remember you talking about that one.
Thank you for that timestamp.
What's
You're
the
welcome.
What's the next one? 81 still.
Thank you for pointing it out to me.
You're welcome.
All right.
When you hear this noise, lee-lee-dee, turn the page. Hogan turns babyface in the AWA.
Yeah, so he goes to Vern Gagne's territory up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He comes in, and we get a face turn by Hogan, who all of a sudden becomes a big deal up there. Obviously, the AWA back then was more centered toward older veterans. So you got somebody like Hogan coming in, so obviously it was a breath of fresh air. He still wasn't Hulk Hogan, the Hulkamaniac per se, but he was working on it. So that is actually the territory where Hulkamania began.
And he was dropping his thermos on people back then, too, because there's video evidence.
Okay.
I got nothing for that, but so that's where he started honing his craft for.
So what would eventually lead to his persona?
Yes. So this is the
red and
early.
yellow,
So
brother.
he was just regular Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, there was no red and yellow yet. He usually just wore white.
For a lot of white, yeah.
Yeah, for
A lot
all
of
the stuff.
white.
So,
Ameri- came out to the Tiger.
yeah, and it's also the time around where he's filmed his part in Thunder Lips in Rocky 3.
Oh,
Rocky III
really?
has yet to come
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Has yet to come out yet, so
So the
81
world
is-
doesn't know him yet.
Not really. You know.
Wow, just that closed circuit did.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing you've seen some of these old matches.
Mm-hmm.
Did he really have something to begin with?
If you saw him when he first started, he was just a big brute. I mean, he
Your
obviously
generic brute that
He
they
had
back
well,
then?
nobody looked like him, so he had that. I mean, Jerry Jarrett from the Memphis territory has actually kind of helped create his look and everything. He did his first promo shot interview type thing when you see this big Greek Adonis looking thing a few years before. But this is where he starts honing in on trying to be the good guy.
Do you have the Greek Adonis standing in the rain image of Hulk Hogan?
Somewhat right now, yes. I'm more focused on the leaf,
So,
Good setup.
which obviously is the top of the thermos.
so I ask you the same question. Did obviously he had to show some? Was it just? I mean, because physique does make you stand out. I agree with that. Was it more the physique, his presence?
I think just
was
Hogan
it Mike?
had all that charisma.
He had all
I
the
mean-
charisma. So you don't think the talent was necessarily all there?
No, I think I don't.
It's fine if you don't. I'm just asking.
No, I think he did. I think Hogan was incredible back then. I mean,
Okay.
he was magnetic. He was so big to move as well as he did. He was legitimately close to 300 pounds.
Okay.
He was still very limited in the ring. Obviously, he was getting better and better. His interview skills skyrocketed from just kind of being, kind of getting about to all of a sudden he's got the confidence and he knows what
Yeah.
he wants to say and get it over. So the AWA needed a breath of fresh air, obviously. So
And he was it.
He was it at the
He
time.
was it.
But AWA was huge then. You had Jesse already there, who was the body.
Yep.
And they were both just an offshoot of superstar Billy Graham.
Yep.
There you go.
Nick Bonkwinkle was the AWA champion and a man's man, consummate wrestler. Many a wrestler will say he's one of the greatest, so check him out whenever you can.
Okay.
The matches him and Hogan had were great. And I would say that Nick was probably instrumental in getting him ready.
Wow. And that was 81.
That was 1981.
That was 1981. All right, so right there we'll pause. We'll come back. Next week. We'll do 82, 83. And before you start drinking from Hogan's thermos, folks, we will see you next time on Princes of the Universe.
Always remember, when it comes crashing down and hurts inside.
Amen.